And away we go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some snips from the news and having a little bit of dialogue with those of you who chose to join us for the live portion. And of course, if you are interested in joining the live portion, if you're listening anywhere else, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Coffee Talk. And on YouTube, that is at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University, Coffee Talk and Prepper University, respectively, as well as X. You can find me on at Coffee Talk Chat. I can't stream there anymore, but I do post things there fairly regularly, I think. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta, Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Being joined today by two felines in the room. I've got Dusty on the floor. There's Dusty. And then Uncle is laid out on the table. Uncle is taking up the table. As you can see, he just keeps going. This big blob is Uncle. 25 pounds of cat, ladies and gentlemen. 25 pounds of cat. So anyways, as always, I do read through as many of the comments as is reasonable. So I'll go ahead and say hello to some of the people that have been able to chime in thus far this afternoon. It's afternoon where I am anyways. Helter is here, as well as Dragon. Brian has joined us, and Dilo as well have chosen to say hello so far as we get ready to jump off here into what I call the realm of the ridiculous. I ought to get that coined. I ought to get that coined. Oh, and here comes Granny Smith. There's Granny Smith lumbering into the room. Granny Smith, poor Granny Smith, even the shelters reject her. I'll talk about that a little bit here as time wears on and more people get into the group, more people join the podcast. So, because I've had some movement with one of the local shelters, but I will get back to that. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and jump to California. You know, California, they like to call it now. California, Governor Newsom's territory. Fox News article, protests erupt at California state capitol after pair of reparations bills are shelved. Yeah. Are you shocked? Are you surprised? You shouldn't be, because there's no plausible way to make any of that really work. So into the article, a pair of reparations-related bills for the descendants of enslaved Black Americans failed to pass in the California legislature on Saturday after backers said the bills would not move forward. Authored by Democratic State Senator Stephen Bradford of Inglewood, Senate Bill 1331 would have created a new state fund for reparations, while Senate Bill 1403 would have established a state agency to oversee these efforts and determine who would be eligible. You know, basically more bureaucracy. You're going to form a committee to determine who's eligible and what they're going to get. And that committee is going to cost millions more of taxpayer dollars. They're going to eat the money up, and they're not going to find anybody. How many slave descendants do you think are in California? Any? Hardly any. A few hundred at best. These measures were considered key components of some lawmakers' ambitious efforts to pass legislation aimed at atoning for what they said was a legacy of racist policies that drove disparities for Black people, from housing to education to health. While the Democrat-led California legislature did pass a spate, that's bad syntax. They only need one A there. Did pass a spate of aimed at remedying past racial injustices. None of these would provide direct payments to African Americans. And that's really why there's the eruption, because all these people, then they got pissed off because they think they're going to get a check. That's really what it boils down to. What are reparations to you? You ask anybody, they want a damn check. And they can't figure it out. The California, even the California government, as like milk-soppingly deeply left as it is, can't figure out a way to make it work. So they can't pass the bills. And everybody gets mad because they had in their minds they already spent that money. They already spent that money. And then there's instances of course, true reparations, which I've talked about it at length in the past with the whole heirs land or heirs property, which you can look up on the Department of Agriculture's website to find out more information about that. HEIRS, heirs property, because my wife is a descendant and her family owns land that was allocated generations ago as a reparations package to thousands of families. So it's already happened. It's already occurred. But for some reason, no politician or activist seems to be able to remember this. And so they talk, oh, reparations. And of course, in everyone's mind, they think the damn check is what it boils down to. And then what's going to happen after you get that money and waste it? You'll be right back where you started, begging for more. And Monkey has joined us. I was looking at the wrong comment. And he says, forming a committee on top of another committee. Exactly. That's how it works. And Helter says some people have made the claim that reparations violates the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. I'm not sure about that, but I do know that it's already technically been done. But no one seems to know about this. And as was demonstrated in the video that we did some time ago when we were on heirs property in South Carolina, my wife and we did a film last year that the question came up because I asked on behalf of the okay, well, who knows this? Is it possible that politicians or activists are unaware? And she pointed out that the local chapter head of the NAACP lives on that land because he is a descendant. So yeah, they're fully aware. They know. But they're counting on the ignorance. They're counting on the ignorance of the population. Like these people in this photo who are standing around, oh yeah, the government owes us, where's our check? That's what that look on their faces is. But big surprise, California can't force it to work. Raccoon has joined us. And Dragon says that their ancestors were enslaved and forced to do hard labor by Romans. Where's my reparation money? Yeah, I know. Well, you'd have to go to the Vatican because they're the remnants of the original Roman Empire. But if you could get anything out of them, I don't know. So here it says, Bradford said the bills didn't move forward out of fear Governor Gavin Newsom would veto them. Oh, please. That is not why. That is not why. Quote, we are at the finish line, and we as the Black Caucus owe it to the descendants of chattel slavery to Black Californians and Black Americans to move this legislation forward, Bradford said, urging his colleagues to reconsider on Saturday afternoon. They can't afford it. They can't make it work. Can they even find but a handful of slave descendants in California? Not likely. California Legislative Black Caucus Chair, Assembly Member Lori Wilson said Saturday the Black Caucus pulled the bills, adding the proposals need more work. They need to find a way to make them work is the problem. We knew from the very beginning that it was an uphill battle, and we also knew from the very beginning that it would be a multi-year effort, Wilson told reporters. You voted it down. If you really thought Newsom was going to veto it, you could have voted yes and then left it on Newsom. Oh, see, it's his fault. If you really thought it had a snowball's chance in hell of moving forward, and oh, what's the reaction of people who had filled the chamber, all these people, all these wannabe activists, that filled the halls waiting to hear that it was going through because they were hoping that they were going to get a nice fat check from the state government. And it's not going to happen now. So we ain't going to get our hair did and our nails did and take a trip to Vegas anytime soon. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. You're just going to have to keep being angry and keep blaming everyone else for your failures in life. That's what you're going to have to do, unfortunately. Nature Nerd says Argentina gives the UK millions of dollars in gold so it can get a loan, or gave or gives. And Brian says we're enslaved by Muslims and Turks. I'm going to demand reparations for something that I've never experienced myself. Yeah, you won't get it either, especially not from those countries. They don't want to hear that crap. The Western world is the only place that you will hear that kind of garbage being thrown around. Oh, reparations, reparations. You owe us, you owe me. Most other countries are like, suck it up. Suck it up and find your own way and quit whining. Yeah, you might have been done wrong in the past, but you ain't living in the past. You're here now. Find your own way, which is a meritocracy. A meritocracy. Earning your way through your life. Earning your way through life. Doesn't always work, but at least you try. At least you try, instead of crying and waiting for somebody else to solve your problems. Waiting for trying to force someone else. And there's only so much that can go around. You know, the government is bleeding dry. There's only so much tax money they can accumulate. As we move around to Elon Musk here, who is in trouble with Brazil. I'm sure you've heard this by now. Al Jazeera article, ban on Elon Musk's X platform upheld by Brazil's Supreme Court. Oh well, no X for you. All 5 judges on a Supreme Court panel have voted to uphold a ban on Elon Musk's X social media platform in Brazil. Lord knows, I'm sure he's hurting so bad because of that. The move on Monday backs the decision by Justice Alexandre de Moraes, or Moraes, one of the 5 judges to shut down X in Brazil. The ban, which went into effect on Saturday, was ordered by Moraes after the company missed a court-imposed deadline to name a legal representative in the South American country. Didn't they arrest the last guy that he tried to get to represent him in Brazil to shut him down? Or am I thinking of someone else? Quote, it is not possible for a company to operate in the territory of a country and intend to impose its vision on which rules should be valid or applied. Justice Flavio Dino said as he joined Justice Cristano Zanin in siding with Moraes. A party that intentionally fails to comply with court decision appears to consider itself above the rule of law, and so it can turn into an outlaw. Justices Carmen Lucia and Luis Fuchs also backed Moraes, making the decision unanimous. However, some of the judges said that the suspension could be reversed if X complies with previous court rulings. Moraes' original order, which was released on Friday, had called Musk an outlaw who intended to allow the massive spread of disinformation, hate speech, and attacks on the democratic rule of law, violating the free choice of the electorate by keeping voters away from real and accurate information. Okay, so in order to be democratic, honest, and transparent, you shut down other people's ability to voice personal opinions about how your government is run. Gotcha. It ordered all telecom providers in the country to shut down X. The ban is to remain in place until X complies with Moraes' order and pays outstanding fines in excess of $3 million. $3 million in what currency? Musk, who bought X in 2022, decried the move as censorship. It is. On Friday, he called the platform the top source of truth in Brazil. He further called Moraes a dictator. Interesting. As I catch up a couple of more comments. Nature Nerd says the family of Jamaica should ask Kamala for reparations. Owie. They won't get it. Monkey said, from what I read on the document, the judge wants Elon to silently remove 6 or was it 7 people's accounts who were the ones to call out on that judge. That sounds familiar. You might be correct, Monkey. That sounds familiar. Who was that? Oh, little girl. Little girl has joined us. So, and that's the new term. Here's little girl, everybody, with her fish, or actually, that's Granny Smith's fish. So, fortunately, Granny Smith didn't hear that, or there'd be a little bit of a tiff. There'd be a little bit of a tiff. So, we're going to pretend democracy. We're going to pretend transparency. We're going to pretend free speech and honesty. But we're going to throw out the term misinformation yet again. I'm so tired of hearing that, because the people who cry disinformation are the ones doing the most censorship. Well, if you won't let us talk and you shut down opposing ideas, concepts, and information, then how can we be sure it's misinformation? We're not all 5 years old, but you want to treat us like we are. Dragon says X is going through a similar thing in the EU from what they've heard. And Monkey elaborates. He says when Elon released the document, people were on the EDS, or Elon derangement syndrome, and saying Elon doxed those people. But people didn't realize those 7 people are public officials, politicians, priests, etc. Thus, their full names are out there. Nope, you can't. You cannot. You cannot, may not, must not talk negatively about the government. And that's been going on for a long time, how dangerous that can be. Again, I'll reference the Doctor of Common Sense. Some of you might be familiar with that YouTube channel. It was a big channel until it was shut down, Doctor of Common Sense. And it wasn't too long after the FBI paid him a visit for some of the things that he used to say about President Obama. And he did a video on that. He was like, federal agents came to my door. He was like, they were very cordial, but it was very pushy and very intimidating, asking me questions about, you said this about Obama, you said that about Obama. And it's like, so it's just opinion. It's not like I'm going to do anything. It's just a YouTube channel, just talking to the audience, whatever. And they were like, oh, well, you didn't do anything wrong. Well, if he didn't do anything wrong, why are federal agents at his door trying to intimidate the man? And where's his channel now? He's gone, right? Some of you might know who I'm talking about. Doctor of Common Sense. Always wore sunglasses. But yeah, I mean, that's very intimidating. If you didn't do anything wrong, why are you harassing him? Or if he didn't do anything wrong, rather, why are you harassing the man? Why are you? It's intimidation is what that is. It's a form of intimidation being imposed by an arm of the federal government on a YouTube channel. And he had a pretty good following, but he wasn't that big. He's not like Mark Dice big here. Okay. He had like maybe 100 and something thousand subscribers. Is that correct? Raccoon says they remember him. Black guy with sunglasses, and he was funny. Yeah, he could be pretty funny. Monkey says, a reminder, if Brazil can do this, what's stopping the US, UK, Canada, any Western world from doing this? Well, the United States was doing it, and during the pandemic, which has been revealed. Some of you might recall now even Zuckerberg is admitting that openly and publicly the federal government intimidated Facebook into censoring people to prevent their content from being put out there. They were shutting down accounts. They were blocking images, blocking profiles, so on and so forth, as, quote, misinformation again. And that was after, you might recall, when the director of the FBI was before Congress in 2022, 2 years ago, before congressional hearings, and being asked if they are censoring or intimidating social media platforms into censoring content. We have reason to believe that you are intimidating these platforms, that you're trying to get them to remove content or alter content or block accounts. And he unequivocally denied it, said that was untrue, that they don't do that sort of thing. And the congressman called him on it, and he was like, no, we have evidence that you are. And that is a violation of the rule of law, whereby the government may not use a third party to push a political agenda. And you're doing it, and we know you're doing it. And he was like, that is just not true, Congressman. We are not doing that. That is incorrect information that you have. Now it's being exposed that that is 100% true. What's going to be done about it? Government's been doing that. U.S. government's been doing it. Canada's been doing it. UK's been doing it, and so on. Raccoon says, makes you wonder if they'd shut him down and not Mark Dice. Maybe Dice is a shill. I don't know. Or maybe his approach is just different. Dice's approach and his approach were very different. Their method is very different. Plus, Dice has a much larger platform. He's more of a recognizable figure or character. So he would be in a position to fight. He would be in a position to try to fight that if he got struck. I mean, he's an author. He's been on other shows, real shows. All People says Doctor of Common Sense now has a new, much smaller channel called Ask the Doctor of Common Sense. Okay, I wasn't sure. Brian says Google too probably would have left him alone, and he might have had millions of subscribers if we had a far left-wing channel. Yeah, I agree with that. If he leaned in that direction, they'd have been much nicer to him. They would have been much nicer to me. You all know my story about how it is that I think I got into the position that I'm in with ScrewTube, where they've been hammering both Coffee Talk and Prepper University for coming on 3 years now, ever since I refused that offer. They came to me like Marlon Brando and gave me the offer I couldn't refuse, and I did. And ever since then, I've had nothing but problems on both of those channels, and I've watched them slowly die. It's very unfortunate. Speaking of slowly dying, we'll talk about unions here really quick. CBS News article, strikes start at top hotel chains across the country. Here we go. With up to 17 rooms to clean each shift, Fatima Ahmad's job at the Moxie Hotel in downtown Boston sometimes feels impossible. 17, that's it, in a shift? Listen, when I was working for Ronex, and they used to have me digging up plant and digging holes for bushes or shoveling snow at the motel, and I forget what street it's on, but it's right off of Commonwealth Avenue in Brighton. They'd send me to that hotel sometimes to do some work. And you had a couple of girls servicing that entire motel. 17 rooms, and they were probably doing 30 each. Okay, go on and bitch about your job. There was the time she found 3 days worth of blonde dog fur clinging to the curtains. Well, then you take the curtains down and you throw them in the washing machine. The bedspread and the carpet, she knew she would finish in 30 minutes she's supposed to spend on each room. 30 minutes a room, that's not bad. Some rooms are pretty quick. The dog owner had declined daily room cleaning, an option that many hotels encourage. Blah, blah, blah. Unionized housekeepers, however, have waged a fierce fight to restore automatic daily room cleaning, and major hotel chains saying they've been saddled with unimaginable workloads, or in many cases, fewer hours and a decline in income. The dispute has become emblematic of the frustration over working conditions among hotel workers who were put out of their jobs for months during the pandemic shutdowns and returned to an industry grappling with chronic staffing shortages and evolving travel trends. Okay. So bottom line, the hotel chains are going on strike. Goodbye. Because they're going to replace you all with migrants who will work for half the money, or robots. And we already showed that. I showed a few months back, you might remember, they've got robots that can do most of the basics in the hotel. So you send the robot in there, it'll vacuum the floors, it'll clean the bathroom, it'll steam clean the curtains, you make the bed, whatever. It takes half the labor off. You're asking to be replaced. So go ahead and get that. Go ahead and get that raise. Why don't you? Brian says, Google. Oh, I read that. All People says, what was the offer made to you by ZooTube and Gulag? You never heard that story, all people? I'm shocked. I've mentioned it a couple of times because it was about 3 years ago. And they sent me a message offering to me $5,000 worth of studio equipment to enhance my channel. Okay. And to enhance my channel, a trip to a conference that was being held in, I want to say it was, I know it was California. I can't remember if it was Los Angeles or San Francisco. So a trip to that conference and something else in that package. If I want to say, I'm sure it was Coffee Talk. If I would do pro BLM or pro alphabet videos, especially if it talked about drag queens specifically. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine with my format. Thank you anyway. And ever since then, I've been plagued on both Coffee Talk and Prepper University. Plagued. People don't get notifications anymore. Viewership just died. Subscription levels started to drop off. I get warnings almost daily. I've talked about that many times. That's been going on nearly 3 years now, ever since I declined that. If I trace it back, ever since that decline, or ever since that incident where I was like, nah, they offered me the 30 pieces of silver, and I said no. Basically, I could sure as hell use like $5,000 worth of studio equipment and a trip to California sucks. A trip to San Francisco and a couple of nights in a hotel to go to some bullshit conference. Sure, why not? I'm sure a lot of people would have been like, yeah, okay, I'll do a pro drag queen video to satisfy you. I didn't want to do it. And that's where it left me. I went from, if you look at the older videos on especially Prepper University, and I'm getting like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000, 100,000, a million views on a video. I've got a couple of videos with over 1 million views. And now look at my last actual video that I put up, not a podcast, but an actual video on Prepper University. It's got like 500 views. It was over a month ago. They've killed the channels. Did it on purpose. I really believe that they set the algorithm to really lean on me, and it's just never let up. It's never let up on these two channels, and that's why I've speculated a few times. It's just a matter of time before Coffee Talk and Prepper University. It just won't be worth it to do it anymore. Because it's besides the fact that the news is toxic and you invite a lot of ire from people, you get a lot of nasty comments and things like that, and they're beating the hell out of you. I've read that warning that I got last time, and they can't even tell me what the warning's for. It's scary out there. It's scary out there, unfortunately. And then I'll just be on the hobby channel then. So if anybody is ever looking for me, I'll show you where it is. That's the hobby channel. And they never touch the hobby channel. They leave it alone, and they just let it be organic. And I talk about anything retro or vintage on that channel. Vinyl records, old TV shows, old movies, old commercials, vintage toys, comic books, magazines, anything like that. Brian says you can't leave us. They're crushing me. When they started doing that, I had over 65,000 subscribers on Penny University. There's 63 there now. It trickles down every day. I lose more and more. There's nobody watching. There's no one watching here either anymore, except for a handful of diehards, as it were, that just really enjoy the content. And Raccoon says, no more hate mail grab bag videos. I miss hearing the haters' ridiculous complaints. I might do another one. Lord knows I get enough. And I had that troll in here last week that was mad at me because I'm not with her. I'm not with her. Which brings up a funny story I'll get to in a minute as soon as I wrap up the unions here. Because unions are destroying America, in my opinion. And I have an opinion piece actually from Fox News that resonated with me. As you all are aware, I've been in unions and I found them to be distasteful and useless. So Labor Day, a harsh reminder, unions turned into the bosses they pretend to dislike. I totally get that statement, having been in unions 4 times, although twice it was Teamsters. Twice it was Teamsters, once with a bus company and once with UPS. It was Teamsters. And they don't help you and they don't look out for you. I'm not important enough at UPS because I was just working in the warehouse. If I was a driver, they'd have probably watched out for me because that's where the real money is. So here we go. Labor Day should be a time for celebrating the American worker, not just enjoying an extra day off work or the unofficial end of summer. Yet every year, union officials inevitably attempt to steal the spotlight from rank and file workers in order to argue for more government-granted powers to the detriment of the rights of the very workers they claim to represent. I totally feel that statement. I know there's some, I've been attacked by union people in the comment section too. They don't like me talking negatively about the unions, but then they don't argue against any of the points that I make. They're just mad at me for not being one of the good old boys. Back to the article. You see, today's unions are built on the government-granted power to compel workers into their ranks. In the 24 states without right-to-work laws, union officials can legally extort private sector workers to pay up or be fired. That is true. Especially when I was in Illinois, I was not allowed to finish my application until I applied for the union card. I had to fill out that union card first, accepting the Teamsters terms, or I could not proceed. And that's forcing you to join the union. What if I don't want to be in that union? What if I don't want to pay dues so that that money can be used to fund political opponents? I don't think unions should be giving money to politicians at all or backing politicians. You're supposed to be looking out for your worker. You're taking my union fees and giving the money away. And then if someone in the union needs something, it's like, oh, well, tough shit is their attitude. And that's been the thing every single time. And Jane is here. He said, popped in, and Brian is right. Good info here. Hey, I try. And, you know, apparently I got a good thing going. Fistful of Radio likes me. They just can't fund me. So I'm not getting paid for it. But it is what it is. Monkey says it's like once they become part of the manager's upper management, the mood suddenly changes to being a huge dick. It says even for the millions of Americans for whom unions' financial support is ostensibly voluntary, they have no choice but to accept union bargaining over their wages and working conditions. That's true too. The fact that the individual employees may not want the union's so-called representation, or even that they are harmed by a one-size-fits-all union-imposed contract, doesn't change the fact that they are forced under a union without a choice. And I've been through that as well. And Frito-Lay is a good example of that. Frito-Lay was a good example because there was a lot of things in the contract that I was not comfortable with at all, including forced overtime, mandatory forced overtime. And every job I've ever had that had mandatory forced overtime was a union job. I never experienced that anywhere else. Any place else, and they were like, hey, can you work over today? I can't do it. Well, all right, I'll ask somebody else. Union, work overtime, or you're getting a demerit. You get too many demerits, you lose your job. It's a huge, and you know, the funny part of it is that is part of the union contract, the forced mandatory overtime. And forcing people to work past their regular hours is one of the reasons why unions were formed in this country in the first place. And Fluke Man has joined us. Wow, you're late to the party. That's okay, though. Glad you could make it today. Happy to have anybody join us who wants to be part of the conversation. It says, adding insult to injury, to advocate for new coercive powers, union officials use the money collected from workers who would be fired if they refuse to pay. And they take that money and do what with it? They donate it. They donate it to these politicians so that they can hopefully get more power and authority through their lobbying. And I just can't agree with that. I don't think that's representing the workers at all. and too many of them are crooks. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my wife has watched an episode of like American Greed, and it's some union boss that ripped off the union funds, and now like the the money for the funeral program is gone, and they can't help their workers with funerals anymore. Things like this. Emergency medical fund is empty, and they can't replace the money because somebody stole it. It's pathetic. It's outlived its usefulness. It's like Saturday Night Live. SNL outlived its usefulness more than 20 years ago. It's not a good show anymore, but they just won't let it go. They won't let it go. Oh, here's Dusty. Dusty's over my shoulder, and Uncle is still on the tabletop here. Uncle is taking up the tabletop. That is no exaggeration. You see how big this monster is right here. It's a big, big boy. Big boy. Oh, and I had mentioned earlier the cats. Okay, as many of you are aware, right now we are currently taking care of 20 cats. And we were working with another organization, Halo House, who just disappeared on us. They left us hanging. They had fosters, a couple of fosters that they had us watching out for. They wanted the kittens from the feral mama out back. Yeah, we're going to set this up for you. We're going to do this or that. And then they just disappeared. They blocked us. They blocked us from emails and from phone, telephone calls and text messages. It's like, what the hell's going on? Even the vet that we were working with was like, what happened to them? Because we can't help you without a sponsor. And we don't know. We don't know what happened. We don't know what happened, do we, Dusty? Poor Dusty. She doesn't know anything about it. Well, we went and talked to a couple of other organizations, and I just made contact over the weekend with one who was willing to take 2 of our fosters that we were holding, but they won't help us with anyone else. They were going to take Granny Smith, but then they said they don't want her because she has a limp. They're like, oh, come on. It was, we don't have the ability to handle any special medical needs. And it's like, she doesn't have any special medical needs. She had a broken elbow. It healed wrong because it was broken when she was homeless. And so she walks with a limp, but she still runs and jumps and plays, and she's not in pain. But when she's walking, she just kind of lurches to that one arm. She doesn't need anything special medically, but apparently they don't want her because she has a limp. And it's like, that sucks. And that's just another window into the whole realm of dealing with a lot of these shelters and other services. And they need cats right now, because that's why they want our 2 fosters, because they're already spayed and with shots. And so they're like, okay, we want them because we got people waiting. All right, good. They'll go into a home. That's what I want. And then, but then, oh, Granny Smith, oh, she ain't good enough. And I'm like, damn, she is the sweetest cat. She is the sweetest, silliest little thing. And yeah, she has a limp, tough. And I'm like, from my perspective, I'm like, those are the ones, if you're a shelter, you need to watch out for the most, because they're the most likely to get dumped by somebody when they don't want to deal with them. And Jane says, Uncle is huge. Yes, he is. Uncle is, and I'll give you for contrast, there you go. He's like a small dog. He's about 25 pounds. And you can see by his length, he fills it in. That's all right, Uncle. I know. You know I'm there, don't you? He's a big baby too, see? I know a lot of cats, if you touch their stomach, they go nuts. And he's just like, yeah, go ahead and scratch me there. He loves it. Uncle's a big baby. He's not going anywhere. We're keeping him forever. Monkey says the blue-collar jobs are where I can see unions being there due to conditions of the workplace, like plumbing, electrician, iron workers, while the Writers Guild people to clean motels aren't even necessary to have. And then you can make the argument also as far as union jobs. Well, yeah, if they're looking out for your safety, but OSHA enforces it anyways in a lot of instances. Jane says Dusty is lovely too. Nature Nerd says, could you start a legit foster cat organization? I don't know. I mean, for one thing, since we're doing it in our home, the law wouldn't allow for them to be just wandering in our back area. We got them in our backyard, and then they go over the fence and into the woods back there and just run around and do whatever. And they go to the lake. There's a lake further back. They wouldn't allow that. The state wouldn't allow all that. They'd want us to keep everybody in a cage. And secondly, I don't think our home is suitable to sustain it. We're over our limit anyways at 20. And it's hard on me because I love them all. I don't want to adopt any of them. But yeah, I to be realistic, I can't keep them all. I can't keep them all as much as I like them or whatever, because it just it won't work. It just won't work in the long run. And that's what's going on with the cats. So next week, while they set up the adoption process, we'll be down to 18. Basically, we'll be down to 18. And that's what Jane is confirming. It says currently all big cities, hotel, Hilton, and Marriott workers as clean and maintenance are on strike for now. Yeah, and they'll be replaced with robots and migrants. So goodbye. Flukeman says each generation comes along, forgets a tiny piece, or doesn't care the whole reason why the businesses or organizations were set up in the first place. And that brings us back to where we started with the first article on reparations, when the reason why my wife knows so much about the whole heirs property and how that works and where it came from isn't just because she grew up there. It's because it was mandatory in the public school that is in that area. It's also located on the heirs property, and it is overseen by their own sort of private government, as it were. So you could almost call it a tribal government that oversees everything that happens on the heirs property. And so as part of the curriculum in the public school, they insist, thank you, Dusty, they insisted upon the history of that land being taught to the students, so that they would have an appreciation for the legacy land that they were inheriting, which is very important. We don't have anything like that in public school. Jane says, did you hear Hell's Angels going to Aurora, California to confront Venezuelan gangs? Or maybe it's a rumor. I didn't hear that. I did not hear that, so I'm not sure if it's a rumor or if it's true or what. Going to confront Venezuelan gangs. Let them fight. Yeah, they'll go down there and there'll be a big fight, and then they'll cry about that, and then they'll want more gun control. Daily Express article. I'm sure you've probably heard about this, and they're making a big deal about it, and it kind of is actually in its own way. Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro's plane was seized by U.S. as tensions escalate. It says Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's plane has been seized by the U.S. as tensions between Washington and Caracas escalate. It is believed to be the most important jet used by Maduro and has been likened to Air Force One. The aircraft was seized by U.S. officials in the Dominican Republic and has been flown to Fort Lauderdale in Florida. According to CNN, he was not on board. Yeah, I bet he wasn't. Of course he wasn't on board. Washington has imposed sanctions on Maduro and his representatives over what it views as extensive corruption and international outcry over his re-election. U.S. Secretary of State says there is overwhelming evidence Venezuela's opposition was the true winner in the election. Given the overwhelming evidence, it is clear to the United States and most importantly to the Venezuelan people that Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia won the most votes in Venezuela's 28th presidential election. All right. So the seizing of the plane, and people are like, who the hell cares? We're seizing property from the president to try to intimidate that government, which means it's the first step in the U.S. getting involved in their bullshit, in their conflict down there. Okay. Secondly, and he came right out of the 80s with that jacket. Am I the only one that thinks he's holding up a condom? Oh my God. Anyways, secondly, the United States is perplexed and enraged, government claims to be, because it's obvious that they're voter tampering. Yet when there's question of it happening here, we better shut up or else we'll be investigated by the FBI. Let me catch up a couple of comments. Joe says America is still buying billions of Venezuelan sludge oil instead of pumping it right here when we should. All People says, can the heirs land family keep the alphabet agenda and the migrant agenda out of their public school? I would think so. I haven't heard anything about that from that area. If it's on their property, if the school is located within that zone, they have more control over what is taught there than in other parts of the. I haven't asked specifically about alphabet agenda, but I can imagine, because they have their own like council of elders, as it were, people who keep the books and the records for the family trees and who's got what piece of property and whatever, have a say in that. Jane says, also saw an X that U.S. Army and National Guard in hotels in New York City. Something's up, trying to get ready for riots after to the election in November. Nature Nerd says America stealing a president's plane means we hate Venezuela as much as Cuba. As we catch up here, Helter says, interesting, the U.S. government can impose sanctions, can accuse you of violating said sanctions, and then steal your stuff. Yeah, it's asset forfeiture. Oh, there you go. Dragon says this is asset forfeiture on an international level. There you are. And Joe says the NFL is playing a football game in Brazil on Friday, but won't be much reporting since Twitter is now banned in Brazil. That's right. That's right. And you know what? It's speaking of all of that, since it was brought up, sort of, I was the whole concept of voting is a story that my wife told me. She told me on Friday when she came back from work, and I thought I would share it. It's not part of an article. This is something that happened to her at work. She had one of the employees on her job asked her who she was voting for. And she said she's not going to vote. And then he was like, you're not going to vote? You ain't voting for Kamala? And he was like, and she was like, no, are you? And he says, yeah, I'm voting for Kamala. And then my wife asked this guy, okay, why are you voting for Kamala? And he says, because, and I think this is a quote, because you got to look out for your sister. Know what I'm saying? Something to that effect. Gotta look out for the sister. And she said, so you're voting for her because she's black? And he was like, yeah, of course. And she asked him, what is what is her platform though? What does she stand for, or what's her record look like? And he's like, I don't know. And so she said, so you're only voting for her because she's black? And he was like, because she's black? And he was like, yeah, I guess. And she told me that that's the second person she's had a conversation with like that on the job. You don't even know what she stands for. You don't know what her platform is. You don't know what her record is. Remember, she's been in politics for 34 years. But you're going to vote for her because she claims that she's black, or she's black enough. And I know All People's going to say something. Because she never claimed to be until 2024. Never claimed to be. And Urban Angst has joined us. Glad you could make it today, Urban. And Jane says, oh my, that is crazy talk from the coworker. Yeah. But that's unfortunately the reality of it. That's how we end up with people like this. That's how we ended up with Obama. You voted for these people based on color or gender. It's the wrong reason. It's the wrong reason. She's got as many strings on her as Biden does. She can't be trusted. Not like Trump is that fantastic. But unfortunately, it's a better choice under the circumstances. She's got way more strings. You think things are weird now. It's like, you're going to vote for her. What was it? We got to give her a chance. That's what else he told her. I'm trying to remember how she worded it. She's not here. I can't ask her. We got to give her a chance. She's already been there for 4 years. She's already been there for 4 years. And what's she done? Plus, again, she's been in politics for 34 years. She got her first political position in 1990. 1990 as an assistant district attorney in California, and which is a political position. Dragon says those same people that bitch and whine about the problem that they caused, and that's going to make the problem worse. You're going to vote for her because of that? That's your take on it? That's what you want to do? That's the reason why you're voting for this person? Seriously? And all people is telling you about her family right there. And that her father's Indo-Jamaican, not Afro-Jamaican. And of course, the mother is from India, which means that she's got no African connection. But yeah, apparently in the U.S., if you're dark enough, you're African American. And there you are. There you are. Just enough. She says it and it's enough. Well, shoot, I'm black too. I identify as African American. I want my check. It's so asinine. But there's way too many people out there like that. There's way too many people out there like that. When we were visiting her mother at the nursing home, but she's back from the hospital, by the way, because you might recall she was in the nursing home after her stroke, and she had medical problems, ended up back in the hospital. She was in the hospital for 3 weeks, and now she's back in the nursing home again. So my wife visits her every day during her lunch break. And I go with her on the weekends. And while we were there over the weekend, her roommate, because they have roommates, was talking about Donald Trump out of nowhere. Because I guess he was on her TV. She has the TV going, and there might have been a Trump commercial. I don't remember. He's like, I can't stand that man. He makes me sick. That Donald Trump. I don't know how anyone could vote for him, going around all raping up on people. And I'm like, who the hell said that he ever sexually assaulted anyone? Has anyone heard that story? I never heard that. I know the whole bit with Stormy Daniels and the affair and all of that, whatever. I never heard that he sexually assaulted anyone. Where did you get that from? There's nothing, just ignore her. There's nothing you can say to her. She's some like 80-year-old crazy woman. But guess what? That 80-year-old crazy woman's going to cast a vote because they have a voting mechanism in the nursing home. And there's a lot of people like this who will vote that way because of just some misconception of how they feel or something that they heard, or because of the color someone is or the gender that someone is, like the coworker that I just described. This is their reason, which is pretty much why there's an electoral college, because of what used to be referred to as low information voters. Who was it that used to say that? Low information voters. I can hear his voice. I can't think of his name. The low information voters, The Electoral College is supposed to protect the high office from that, and it's weaponized. It's weaponized to the point where your regular vote doesn't count for a damn thing. Your vote doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't help. It doesn't change anything. And Jane says something about a department store. Heard he molested a woman in a New York department store and grabbed her orbs, sued him and won. I've never heard that story. Dragon says one of the most prominent uses of the term came from political consultant Samuel Popkin in his 1991 book, The Reasoning Voter. And Flukeman says Harris would have said she's Indian if Democrats promoted Indian Lives Matter instead of the BLM. Yeah, of course, because that was her platform. She rides the Indian Pacific Islander platform, the Asian, as it were, platform. She rode that all the way up until she ran in 2020. And all people said Kamala made her first drop rule false claim of having 12.5% invisible black blood in 2018, despite being sworn in 2016 as the first East Indian senator. Oh, no. And also something to be considered there, going back to what Jane said about grabbing orbs and Trump. Did it really happen, or did they just settle out of court to make it go away because they didn't want to deal with it? Very often, a lot of these guys, especially very wealthy people, will settle rather than put up with any bullshit or be dragged through court. They don't even want to bother. So I don't know. I've never heard the story, though. I don't think I've heard that. I don't think I've heard that. And while we're on the subject, we're not really on the subject, but jumping into this one article here that I thought was interesting. And this is a Telegraph article. Taliban hires female spies to catch women breaking harsh new laws. Oh, you got to love the guy from the Taliban wearing the uniforms that we left behind. Thank you, Biden, because that's definitely a U.S. uniform. And then he's got sandals on. Oh, my God. Okay. It says the Taliban using female workers to spy on other women to enforce harsh new laws. Since returning to power in 2021, the Afghan regime has banned women from working outside the home or attending school and university. Some women are still employed at the Ministry for the Propagation of Virtue and Prevention of Vice. The body that polices the restrictions, and more recruits are wanted. They are needed to handle other women, according to the ministry. The official said that the Taliban has hired women to monitor Instagram pages and report instances where women post pictures with uncovered faces. You know how Instagram works. They can hide their page so no one can see them. But we have women who are our eyes, said the official, who works at the ministry's women's department. He added that some women are coerced into this role while others are paid for their work, which also includes accompanying male Taliban members on street patrols. Oh, God. Some women were arrested and released only on the condition that they inform the ministry of any illegal activity they observe from the women that they follow, the official said. It is acceptable when women assist us in combating prostitution, he added, when questioned about whether female members of the Taliban speaking to men violates the rules. The ministry needs more women across the country, but the current situation is not good, and few are volunteering to work at the ministry. They're probably afraid that you offering them the job is a trap. Oh, my God. So, yeah, female spies. It's no different than your neighbor calling code compliance on you because you left the lids off your garbage cans. Only they're getting paid. All your neighbor gets is the satisfaction of knowing that they screwed somebody over. And while we're on the subject, Hey, Uncle. Am I disturbing your nap? There's barely room on the table for you, buddy. You're going to fall off. It's all right. You're a good boy. Anyways. Oh, and I see Prime Mover. He says, just stopping into to say kitty show and tell time. Yeah, just in time. Come here, Uncle. Can I pick you up for a second? Oh, my gosh. Whoops. I don't want to drop you. Here you go. Uncle, everybody. There he is. Hey. He's a good boy. He's a really good boy. He started off pretty rough. He was aggressive at first, but he's calmed it down so much. He's a different animal altogether than when we first found him. Anyway, with that, I will go ahead and start wrapping things up. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, Coffee Talk and Prepper University. That again, right there is the hobby channel in case I ever disappear from these platforms, because they spend so much time trying to crush me out of this channel, unfortunately. So you can always find me on Open by Chance. Fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. And with that, I will say thank you to everybody who was able to join us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will